Today on the Winded Podcast, I'm joined by Jonny Suporn, the founder and head skills coach of Heads Up Hockey, one of the North Shore's go-to hockey development programs. We get into how he turned a part-time coaching job in college into Heads Up Hockey, why the approach is about teaching fundamentals and not sucking the fun out of the game. We talk skill work, confidence, and what he looks for when he's coaching. The Winded Podcast starts now. Welcome back to the Winded Podcast. Today on the show, I have Jonny Suporn of Heads Up Hockey, founder and coach of Heads Up Hockey, one of the premier hockey training programs on the North Shore. Jonny, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on today. Let's start right off the bat. How did you get started? Obviously, I'm assuming growing up playing hockey, but how did you get involved in the coaching aspect and starting Heads Up Hockey?
Sure. So the story goes back maybe 10 years now when I was in college at Merrimack. I was a sophomore at Merrimack, just looking for, a side job, make some money on the side. I found this company called Stop It Goaltending, and I would work as a shooter. So basically, I would just shoot pucks on goalies who were training. There was a goalie coach on the ice, and I was just his helper, shooting pucks at the glove, to working on their glove saves, etc. I built a relationship. I built a relationship with the owner of that company, Brian DeCord, and he kind of put me in a position to not only sell extra ice that the goalies weren't using at a rink called Hat Trick in Middleton, and he also said, "Hey, if you can you run player lessons?" And this is a kid, like, I'm a kid in college, no book of business, zero clientele. And so what did I do? I said yes, and I just made like flyers, put them on Facebook. Got one client turns to two, two turns to four. And then literally 9 years later, today we have like probably like 400 plus like active clients. Um, so Heads Up Hockey wasn't born till like maybe 2022. I'd say like right after COVID is kind of when I had the idea. And but that was like 6 years of doing lessons, building a book of business. Finally, I felt like, okay, I could do this full time. So Heads Up Hockey was created to sort of allow me to really take that next step and go full time and leave the 9 to 5. I studied engineering in college, so I did get my degree in electrical engineering. I worked full time for like 4 years for a company in Wilmington while still trying to build the business. And then it wasn't until year 7 of doing that I went full time and started Heads Up Hockey. And here we are.
Awesome. And beyond the 400 plus clients you have, you've built quite a following on Instagram and YouTube with your training videos that are very informative. I grew up playing hockey myself, and it seems like the way the game is taught and everything is completely different. I'm 36 years old, so, going on 30 plus years ago, I started skating, and just the explanations, the different drills and processes that you do just make so much more sense. And I can see why we talked about it before we got on how smart these kids are and the skill level that they have, and it's because of the different approach to training that programs like Heads Up Hockey do.
Sure, man. Yeah, I mean, the game now is so technical, right? Even from like the simple stuff, but also to like the tricks. Like you see kids like 4-year-olds these days doing Michigans. It's like, dude, where'd you learn that? Right? While I'm not really spending much time teaching the Michigan specifically, you know, even for me as a kid, like I'm 28, so I was able to see guys going in like Ovechkin, Crosby. You could argue those two were like super instrumental in changing the way hockey was played. Like they brought style to the game, right? I feel like everyone before their time kind of looked the same, skated the same way, shot the same way. And then you got guys like Ovi, who's like flopping his tongues and rolling up his sleeves. And, he's jumping into the boards all crazy after goals. He's bringing sauce to the game. Crosby, you could argue, did the same in a different, more subtle way. But Crosby was still like, you could argue those two guys, Ovechkin, Crosby, like they are probably the reason why so many hockey players play hockey to this day. Ovechkin was the guy for me. And then again, like building off that, it's a snowball effect. So like the kids these days are just, they see what they see. They see Bedard, they see McDavid, just watching them like play that way, they kind of like already get a jump start on if let's say you grew up playing like watching Wayne Gretzky. Like, yeah, you put a side by side of McDavid and Gretzky, one looks like they're moving in slow motion, right? So just like skating, it's also technical. So I take that approach with my lessons. Like we're not just here to I'm not just moving cones around and saying do this. I'm showing you, this is what you have to do in order to do this. Trying to, take that step further. And what I hear from all the parents is, Johnny, the reason we like coming to you is because, my kid doesn't get this attention in a team practice. Not only because there's so many kids on the ice and we can't just like stop the practice just to work on your wrist shot. Um, I try to keep myself small. I do privates, I do small groups. Usually, my group ranges from like 4 to 6 players. And so it's like a very intimate setting, small group. I can spend time working with each kid. And that's just been my approach. Technical approach, the finer details. We're digging into the details. And that's just, I guess, how I find success in it.
Yeah, when you have kind of the full practice with 20 plus guys, it's the people that need the work don't necessarily get the attention because it's all about kind of getting ready for the next game. So the more elite players are getting more of the attention, more of the reps. So having the ability to get a private lesson or get a group lesson where you get that one-on-one time with a coach makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. People will spend the extra for that.
You mentioned style when you were talking about kind of the growth of the game. I actually did want to get into this because I saw your post the other day and then your follow-up on your story. You kind of gave a little kind of tutorial about, how you put your shin guard over the tongue of this, and it's literally doesn't benefit you in any way on the ice. It's purely an aesthetic thing. And you had some kind of hate for it. And I'm glad that you responded back to that. And one thing I will say about style when it comes to hockey is, if you're not a great player and you have all the style on the ice, it doesn't make you a better player, but I've never seen an elite player that doesn't have it. So you do need it if you're gonna be that, but it doesn't necessarily make it. But you also got into how the fact that you are 28, you said you're closer in age to the kids than you are to the parents most of the time. How do you see that as a benefit to you?
I think it's huge. I mean, going back to your example with the sty, that guy who, made the comment, look, put yourself in his shoes. He's probably in his 50s. When he grew up, like sty wasn't even a thing probably. You just kind of did the thing and he and not to pick on him, he's just a guy that it's like I don't think it's his fault is what I'm trying to say. Like
Yeah.
he sees the game differently, and all the point I was trying to make is I see the game differently. I'm closer to these kids in age, therefore this things like style, these things like matter to me and they don't to him. But my point is like, okay, well if it matters to me and I care about it, well now the kids are gonna like me better more than him. And I think I'm able to like kind of relate to them more. Like if you're not connecting with these kids on this topic, like what other topics do you have like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're the guy going in the locker room saying, "Guys, like, forget about style. Like, that's not what we're doing here," and all these kids are like turned off. They don't want to play for this team anymore. Coach, you're telling me I can't take my stick how I want to take my stick. Um, it's like it's a different thing. And honestly, obviously, every player has like, to each his own. Anyone can, some guys probably like that old school style, and they want the guy with like who played like Division 1 and did the whole thing, but maybe his personality isn't great but he's got all the expertise, right? Versus a guy like me who maybe don't have like the premier like hockey resume. Like, did I play pro? No. But I can connect with your kid. Your kid has fun coming to practice. We can chit chat as if we're buddies. I'm your coach on the ice, but I'm your friend off the ice. And I feel like a lot of guys they miss the friend piece, right? Um, Herb Brooks has a, famous quote like, "I'm your coach, not your friend." And he made it very clear, like, guys, like, this is work. Like, this is not about fun. This is about competing and you take it seriously. For me, I think there's a balance there where let's not forget, like 90% of these kids, 95% of these kids aren't going to go all the way. You know, Spending all this money in youth hockey and development, it's like, is that a complete waste though? No, I think hockey is one of those sports where you can build like the camaraderie. It just forms you into a better human being at the end of the day. Like, you have to face adversity, you have to keep working because if you take a day off, someone else is getting better than you, and there goes your, like, extra time and minutes on the power play. Like, there's so much. You have to, make sure everything's in your hockey bag, which promotes, like, accountability and, like, parents, like, stop filling your water bottle for your kid. Like, that's something they need to do. It's like part of the sort of checklist of what it takes to be a good hockey player. Like, you have to take care of your stuff, you have to show up on time, you have to get dressed on time, you have to follow and pay attention when coaches explaining the drill because they can be very complicated. Like, there's a level of just like maturity and accountability and awareness you have to even be a good hockey player, not only athletic but also responsible. So, all that is to say, like, I just think, yeah, me being able to be essentially still a kid allows me to connect with these kids. Like, some of these kids, like, yeah, they want me as their coach, not the 50-year-old guy who's yelling at practice. Like, I think I'm not a yeller, I'm not a screamer. I can construct and give feedback, but in a, in a way the kid is going to accept it and not just like hate me after the session. And the biggest thing is, do they want to come back? Right? I know of plenty skills coaches who are yelling on the ice, you know what I mean? Like, you mess up a drill, you just get screamed at. Like, that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah, I kinda wanna touch on the specialization of hockey and kind of like the picking one sport versus depending on the season, you play a different sport. How do you think that has helped develop these players, and how do you feel about it? Do you, recommend players sticking to one sport, or do you think it is beneficial to, play soccer, play baseball, do other things, or just kinda really focus on hockey?
Yeah, I think playing multiple sports is absolutely the answer. I promote playing multiple sports. I played multiple sports. I think people kind of get misconstrued when they talk about that topic. Like, for example, growing up, I played baseball, but I still played spring hockey. I think there's kind of two sides to the whole specialization thing. If you drop all other sports and you're just on the ice like all year long, okay, yeah, that is like maybe too much specialization. But I do think hockey's turning into a sport that is all season long, like a full year sport where you've got your fall, winter teams, but then there's also spring, summer stuff. And I think the main point is, as a coach myself, is you probably don't want to take the spring and summer completely off, right? Because then you're going to come back in the fall, and the kids who put in the work in the spring and summer are now like so many like reps ahead of you. And so I think the specialization piece, if you're dropping every sport and you're just doing hockey, yes, like, let's pump the brakes here. But does that mean you can't sign up for a one time a week spring skating skills program during the baseball season? I think there's something to be said about, yeah, like, we don't want to just like put the bag in the garage and just go all 3, 4 months without skating. Like, that's where you're going to fall back. I think it's just about the consistency of it. Can you take a month off right after the season? Sure. Like, hang up the skates. I actually think it's good to get away and just like reset. But do you want to go 3 full months without skating? You lose it pretty quick. Like, just like anything, if you don't move it, you lose it. So I think the specialization piece, I think obviously I'm a little bit biased because I offer spring and summer
Of
programming.
course.
And for me, I feel like that is such crucial time to like, you can change like who you are as a player in those months. But should you just like give up everything else for it? Not probably till you're maybe 14 going into high school and you're like, okay, this is what I love. I hate going to baseball. I hate going to soccer. Like, I love going to hockey. Then, okay, sure. We can specialize at 14, but not at 8 or 9.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I
Yeah.
grew up playing multiple sports, and to your point of putting in the work in the spring and summer, the years that I did it, significant change in
Mm,
how I showed up in November for high
sure.
school season.
Yep.
And another thing, putting the bag away for 3 to 4 months can be dangerous because God knows what it's gonna look like when you go to it and, God forbid you don't air it out and you throw it in the garage for 3 months.
That's
It's an
right.
ugly sight.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I did see something on your story over the weekend that I thought was pretty cool. I sent to a buddy of mine who has young kids, and he immediately was like, "Where is that?" And that's the glow hockey.
Mm.
What tell talk a little bit about that, how much the kids enjoy that, and how you kinda got started doing stuff like that.
Oh, man. So Glow hockey is basically I turn off the lights off in the rink. I set up these black light LEDs. They're like floodlights, and it lights up the rink, with black light. And so everything that is like neon color glows. So basically, it's glow in the dark hockey. I call it the glow games. It's 3v3 on a mini sheet. And ultimately, it's just like the fun zone. Like parents are having fun. I play music. It's a vibe. It's BYOB. So parents can, do what they want with that information. Um, the kids are having fun, and I even had a mom tell me after the Glow games last week, she was like, "Johnny, my kid had the most fun tonight." Like, sometimes the best hockey is when it's just fun. And for me, that was like that stuck with me because, like, yeah, like, I feel like we live in a day now where it's so competitive. Kids are getting cut from club teams, and we're talking literally like 7, 8, 9-year-olds, being treated like free agents, and like there's this whole like, draft system with picking these club teams. Like, it gets sometimes it's like, guys, like, what are we doing here? Like, pump the brakes. Your kid is 8. Is he going out there and, like, trying to have fun, or is he trying to, like, impress you, and he feels pressure that he needs to do good at this ID skate, or else, he's not gonna make a team that he wants to make? Like, I think there's such a big balance there between, yes, you wanna be competitive, that's why you do the club thing, but also, like, guys, we're here to have fun. And if you're especially the parents, sometimes the parents are the real sort of fun suck of the kid. Like, when the parent has a high expectation of the kid, and then the kid doesn't meet that, now it's no longer about fun, now it's about, you know, meeting expectations. And I just see a lot of, there's some folks out there who unfortunately are just, like, pressure cookers for their kid. And so why did I do glow games? Because this is, guys, like, yes, we're here to compete. Like, there's some good talent on the ice, but the lights are off, the music's playing. Just have fun. Just go out there and smile and laugh. And, like, that's been super successful. Like, people love that stuff. And, people are the program itself is growing. So we've been sold out pretty much like the past 4 weeks since I started it. And it really all started off this reel that I saw on Instagram. It was like a big rink. They turned off all the lights. They were glowing, and I was like, I don't know where this is, but I could bring this to, PBD, Massachusetts, because I already have ice over there, and it just worked. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of, you reminded me of when you talked about turning off the lights, you reminded me of the incident over the weekend at UMass.
Yeah.
And yeah, the if you didn't see, game in UMass versus UConn, player goes in for UMass, the guy who handles the lights and the horn and everything thinks that it's a goal. It's overtime, by the way, and didn't actually score. And the music starts playing, puck goes the other way. UConn's going in on a breakaway, and they flash the lights, and then the lights go completely out. Um, you just got to feel for UConn because they ended up losing in a shootout. So when you talked about turning the lights off, it made me think of that. And then I saw this morning that Hockey East issued a statement saying that those type of after game or after goal celebrations are now banned. You can't turn the lights off until after the game. So,
Really? Wow.
yeah. So, but you did kind of touch on something else I wanted to get into, and that is the parents' angle. I don't think that there's going to be many of your actual athletes listening to this podcast. This is actually, kind of more catered to parents, I would imagine. And I wanted to get into kind of something that came up with a buddy of mine who he didn't play hockey himself, but he's got two kids playing and he's loving it. The kids are loving, he's loving it, he's having a great time. But there are some times where, like, when you have a young kid, sometimes the effort isn't there and that can be frustrating for the parent. And you said you don't want the parent to suck the fun out of it. What advice would you give to a parent when they go and they're sitting in the stands and they're watching and, they paid a lot of money for their kid to be out there and they're not getting the effort? What would be some advice on how to handle a situation like that?
Sure. So, yeah, again, I think it's very clear. A lot of times, there's this term called parent goggles where, you think your kid's the best thing since sliced bread, and he's just clearly not. I think those are the parents that bring problems, right? When you think your kid should be on this team, but he's not making it, and you then just like deem it as politics. Oh, like, my kid didn't make it because he's not friends with the coach, etc. I think those are the parents that need like need to change. There's plenty of parents who are great, no parent goggles. They know exactly where their kid belongs. In an instance where you're spending money and then your kid is just not showing up, not putting in effort, I think that is sort of just like, okay, then okay, if that's the case, then let's just give them like very minimal opportunities, right? Let's play town hockey. Let's not probably not going to do any extra additional training with heads up hockey if he doesn't really want to get better, right? You're not going to sign him up for every spring program if your kid doesn't want to be there. I think that's the point. And if you really see that he doesn't like it, then just pull him. Like, I think, there's this balance between, yeah, you got to be an athlete, you got to be a hard worker, but you got to love the game if you're going to go all the way. Like, if you simply don't love it, there's probably no reason to keep investing into it. Some kids, yes, they do it just because they need something to fill time, and you can tell who those kids are. Those are the kids who don't do any extra skills, and those are the kids who probably don't perform well in games either. So hockey is becoming kind of that sport. It's like you can't just be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's like going back to the specialization. It's like not so much specialization. I don't really like using that term, but more just like you got to be consistent. I think hockey's because of the growth of it, like you have to stay consistent if you want to keep being like at the top. Because the saying goes like there's someone out there your age who's better than you, right? Like someone's working harder than you. And so if you fall back, you um you'll just lose your spot. But at the same token, if you go too crazy into it, you specialize too early, then you could burn out and actually start hating the game because your parents want you to skate 5 times a week and you just get sick of it. Like there's a balance there, of course. And for me, like I don't have any kids yet, but when I do, obviously I want to play hockey, but I can't like shove a stick down their throat and say, you're going to be a hockey player. I've got to leave the stick in the room, pick it up, put it in their hands, you know what I mean? And hopefully they just build like a love for it. And then with love, with passion comes hard work, right? Like if you don't love something, you're not going to put a lot of effort into it. And if you find at 10 years old your kid just like doesn't care, doesn't work hard, then it's like maybe don't sign him up for the, extra stuff when he's 11. And it's definitely tough, especially if you're a guy like me. Let's say I have a kid one day and me, I'm a big hockey guy, and then I find out my kid like doesn't like it as much as I do. That's sort of a tough pill to swallow, and I'll have to navigate that if that does happen. You know what I mean?
Mhm, for
Yeah.
sure. Obviously, you are a coach and you do a lot of teaching, but what I've found anytime you are teaching, you learn something yourself. What is it that you continue to learn from the kids, as you're out there on the ice with them? Or what have you learned during this whole process?
Sure. I mean, I've learned that these kids they're such great kids. And I've also learned that a lot of times the parent is the great representative of the kid. So like, or the other way around, a kid is a great representation of the parent. So like the saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. If I have a kid who's super coachable, super hardworking, it says a lot about the parent. And then if I have a kid who's non-coachable and is just crazy, just like bouncing off the walls, it kind of does say a lot about like the parents' tactics as well. So all that is to say, I think what I've learned is that there's such great people in the sport, but there's also some bad apples. And typically the kid is a great representation of like the parent and how they kind of like brought them up. I just feel grateful to be working with such great people. And what I learned is that these kids, we live in an interesting time where like there's what I call iPad kids. You know what I mean? They're at the tablets all day, like they can't even like, look at you in the eye at dinner because they're just staring at their Roblox. While that is true for a lot of these kids, like when they get on the ice, I think they are able to like open up, right? They're doing something they love. They are able to express themselves. They're not just staring at a screen. And I think hockey is a great sort of avenue to bring that out and build camaraderie with teammates. And I just feel lucky doing what I'm doing.
That's great. Outside of the glow games, because that's an obvious answer, what is your favorite kind of drill or program or thing that you do at Heads Up Hockey?
Probably my favorite thing I do at Heads Up is my tournament teams. And it's kind of something that's growing. I started tournaments last year. We've been pretty successful, winning maybe 3 out of 5 tournaments we entered. And that's just like, one weekend in April, we're actually going to Nashville, and that's gonna be the first time we're actually flying somewhere for a team Heads Up Hockey event. And it's just getting a group of kids together, all kids that I work with, all kids that I know, and, the thing with spring hockey is that it's, not a team you're with all year long. It's literally just like 2, 3 days with this new team. But, I think for me, it's building that culture right away. Like, guys, you don't know each other, but you play for this team now. You represent this brand. Therefore, you're brothers. And so start acting like it. Start moving the puck. Start sharing the puck. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know that kid, go chat with them in the locker room. Just build a new connection. Like, don't forget these kids. But when the day you're 20, like my best friends to this day are still kids I played hockey with when I was like 14. You know, all my high school hockey teammates, we still have a group chat. But I don't know the last time I talked to my baseball buddies. Again, you know what I mean? It's just like it's
Yeah.
hockey has that camaraderie piece that, all we're really trying to build again is like good human beings. And I think the best way to do that is show them what brotherhood really means. Show them what you play for that guy, not yourself, the name on the front, right? I just think like of all sports, like hockey builds and grows the best just like men and women out there. Like there's nothing like, what you learn from the game that has nothing to do with the ice and the puck. You know what I mean?
I couldn't agree more. Very well said, Johnny. This has been so much fun, Johnny, getting to know you, your process, learn a little bit more about Heads Up Hockey. Why don't you tell people where they could follow you on socials, get involved in Heads Up Hockey, just kind of where you can be found?
Sure. So on Instagram, I mean, it's probably the most where I'm most active. It's at HU Hockey. YouTube Shorts, I post a lot there as well. That's Heads Up Hockey on YouTube. Again, at HU Hockey on Instagram and Heads Up Hockey on YouTube. You could also find me on Facebook. And where I'm most active is Instagram and YouTube. If anyone wants to work with me, you can go on huhockey.com/register, fill out the form. My assistant will get back to you. And yeah, thank you, Shamus.
Of course, this has been great. I look forward to following up with you, and maybe you'll give me a lesson someday because I am very rusty and I want to get back out there and start skating again.
Sure, man. We'll have to link up for a drink sometime.
Sounds good, Johnny.
All right, dude.